Hey guys, it's SD, your host of the Life Picks Relationship podcast, where people with all sorts of backgrounds, challenges, and life experience show us how they make their relationship extraordinary.
Hey guys, hope you're having an awesome day and finding ways to bring adventure in your life, even if you can't travel. I know that's so hard. I'm not taking that as an answer and traveling anyways, but shh, don't tell anyone. Today, we've got another really adventurous story. For the good, for the worse, I'm not sure what to say. You'll have to figure that out for yourself. Here's a man who went through a lot. Now, when I say a lot, I mean a real lot. To put it in his words, he says he's been hurt, seen hurt up close, and has hurt. Today he is loved, sees love, and loves others. Thank you so much, Rocky Singh Kandola, for being here. I am so excited to hear more about your story. Guys, if you want to learn more about him, go to rockykandola.com. I'm going to put that and all his links in the show notes so that way you could go and find out more about him. Rocky, let's do this. Let's start by going all the way back to the beginning. You want to start by telling us what your life was like as a little kid?
Yeah, definitely. So my parents were actually born in India, and they migrated to the U.S. About 5 or 10 years before I was born. And they were in New York at the time, and that's where I was born in New York. My brother and sister were born a short distance away in Ohio. Kind of moved around a lot at a young age. I don't really remember the younger times, but eventually my father moved the whole family to the deep south in Mississippi. And that's where I kind of spent my childhood years and started growing up and learning about life. And that's actually also where my father and I kind of like started bumping heads because he wanted me to stay home and study. I wanted to be out and about, play sports, hang out with friends. And, as an Indian traditional father and kind of really bumped heads there. I was very talking back a lot. I was very hyper energetic and always wanted to do something. So I started getting sent around to schools. And, a lot of those schools were boot camps, military schools, random Catholic boarding schools, some of which, have now been closed due to child abuse, trauma, all kind of other things like that. In
Your
fact,
siblings are also sent to other schools or just you because you weren't paving?
yeah, my parents, my brother and sister got to stay at home the whole time. They were the good ones. They made it through all the way.
They did
It was just me.
homeschooling, specific like homeschooling.
No, they just went to school, like the neighborhood school in our
Oh,
town.
okay,
That
okay.
they never really had to go anywhere else out of town. So yeah, it was me. That was like home for 6 months, then sent to India or Mexico or Canada, the border of Canada, like just different random schools all over the place. So
Whatever
like some
school
of
would
those
take
schools,
you.
exactly. It was kind of like more of like a punishment type of thing. A lot of these schools, Paris Hilton actually did a documentary about it recently, called "This Is Me." It's on Netflix, and she was kind of going into deep details about these schools, how they kidnap the kids, they manipulate the parents and kids, and like they're really abusive as far as a lot of sexual trauma, a lot of physical trauma, a lot of mental trauma. Just the way the whole program is structured, basically a big brainwashed and abusive kind of traumatic experience for someone at that age, as well as on top of that, lying to the parents in the face of medical conditions, educational conditions, even going so far as to not being a high school accredited campus, not being able to actually give people diplomas like me that graduated from there. Years later, I found out I didn't even have a high school diploma.
Oh wow. So your parents completely didn't know what was going on.
No, I mean they heard what I told them, but the programs would tell the parents that your kids are going to lie to you, manipulate you, so don't believe them. Like for me in particular, I was like physically kind of like throwing around a lot there. When I was 12 years old, I went there. I was kicked down a hallway, put on my stomach, sat on top of my back, and my hands and feet were tied to each other. So that was I spent a couple of days like that, amongst other various times, and the other kids had way worse stories than that even. So it's pretty crazy places.
Okay, so that was your childhood. How did you see later on how that affected you?
Yeah, it affected me a lot throughout my life. When I got done with the childhood, got out of in college and everything, I kind of had one of those attitudes where authority couldn't tell me anything. I was a man now, and that kind of led me straight into diving into the women, to parties, to selling drugs, to doing drugs, to just the craziest lifestyle you can imagine, from robbing, getting robbed, fighting, bars, clubs, up all night, sleep all day. And I kind of just dove straight into that lifestyle until eventually it wound me in prison, in Alabama State Prison. And from there, even after I got out, I was still kind of in the same lifestyle. until finally one day I decided to, my father kind of nudged me a little bit, and instead of not listening to him like I did in the past, I kind of had like a different spirit, different energy come into me and say, Rocky, it's the time to try something different. And I left. I left everything I knew behind, from my girlfriends at the time to my circles to everything I was doing to make money and everything, and just went to India, and started living a
Sorry,
clean
one second.
life.
Before you went to India, you said before you went to college, you went to a regular college when you went to college?
The University of South Alabama in Mobile, Alabama.
Okay. So, like, did you not see the difference right away that, like, this is what normal school is versus what you had before?
Well, I had the whole array as a kid. Like I kind of fasted forward through the story, but I went to public schools, I went to private schools, I went to boarding schools, I went to military schools, I went to schools out of the country, and I went to the boot camps and the facilities I was mentioning earlier too. So I had a good idea of what was supposed to be, quote unquote normal, versus like the crazy stuff I was going through.
Okay. So, do you think that made it worse? Like, if you would have been a bit like naive and think this is normal, do you think that would have been easier?
Yeah, I would imagine like if you throw a kid into the environments that I was in, without knowing anything else. Even when I was there, it became normal to me. Even nowadays, when I tell people that we couldn't talk to anybody in the outside world, we had to walk in straight lines. We couldn't, sit down or stand up without permission. We didn't have access to any normal medical things or food, or even, and we had to like shovel sand from one side of the court to the other. People like, wow, that happens. People get kidnapped out of their bed at 12 years old and escorted across the country to somewhere other place. For me, and for the survivors of us that've been through it, they are kind of normal, and that's why talking about it helps, because you realize like nobody else, like they're like, wow, this is not a normal thing. This is, it's crazily traumatic. And as an adult, I've started kind of dealing with that more, because as I said, I got in so much trouble afterwards myself as an adult. The childhood stuff kind of went to the back, and now since I've started changing things, I've had to go back and face all that childhood stuff that kind of hurt back then.
Wow. Okay. Fine. Back to your story now. So, you went to India and
Yeah, from India, like I said, I was living a clean life, and that actually transitions into how I met my now ex-wife. I was there, and I was living in the villages in Punjab, and some cousins I knew from Canada actually were in India on a wedding in New Delhi. And one of those cousins had went to high school with my now ex-wife. And that's where it started. I met her. We were at a wedding together there. And things moved kind of fast. We started talking a little bit. Within 2 months, we were engaged in India. Within 4 to 5 months after that, we were in America and getting married. For me, like it was kind of like at that point in my life, I was looking for new things and I wanted to do different, be better. I was ready definitely to commit to a relationship to one person. However, my habits, what I was doing in my life, the way I viewed things, my career path, everything was still very underdeveloped at that point. I was just getting into it. So that caused, heavy strains in the relationship in the beginning. In fact, like, in Indian families, when you go to meet an Indian daughter's parents, it's kind of like insinuated that, you're looking to get married. And as soon as I sat down, they said, so you want to marry our daughter? And I was just like, yeah. And they're like, what's your plans? What do you have in mind? And I'm a pretty open person, so like the first time I met them, I told them everything about my prison, my experience with girls and drugs and this and that. And I told them, now that I've started changing things and I really want to do something good. And when I was in prison, I made this business plan for hair, and I really think it's going to do good. And I kind of pitched it to them, and they were in agreement with it. They said, okay, if you want to stay with our daughter and date her, you're going to have to get engaged in India, and then get married as soon as you get to America. And that's kind of the way it went. I don't have any hatred against my heart for it. In the very beginning, like since we know now that it was my ex-wife, um, definitely had a lot of hate in my heart. Definitely was very upset. I think it was more emotion, and feeling hurt than hateful. I was feeling very hurt, so I kind of took it out in a very angry sense. Of, I hate those people. Like they're never gonna be my family. I thought they were my family. I don't want to talk to them. And I kind of went through a very deep and dark hole where I kind of slipped back in, drinking and driving around and being in random clubs in Hollywood and doing drugs in the bathroom. And I would be calling, when she first. Let me back up. Sorry. So we came to
hold on one
America.
second. When you were in there in the beginning, like that stage, like when you met those parents and you want to start over, were you getting any help at that point?
Yes, actually, my father was helping me a little bit at that point. He was helping pay for like our rent in the beginning, and then I had a injury like from when I was assaulted almost and thrown into a concrete sidewalk where I had a lawsuit, and so I took that money from the injury lawsuit as well as a little bit of help from dad, and that's where I kind of started things back then. Very shaky ground, not really much to say of my own. If I had to go back and do it again, I probably would have done it the same way. But if I knew now what it takes to quote unquote be a grown up and manage your own life and handle your business and your life and yourself, I would have probably said I wasn't ready at that point, to jump into that.
So you weren't seeing like any therapist or guide in that way.
No, I mean, at that point, I wouldn't say I was closed off to it. But, the previous 20 years of my life, I was forced to go to therapy and psychotherapy and 20, 30, 40 psychologists, psychiatrists, programs, people doing all kind of the tests
It
on
just
me
messed
and
you up
trying
more.
medications. Yeah, and I was like, nope, I'm not talking to these guys. I'm not taking any medicines anymore. Leave me alone. It's always been the last 4 years that I've actually personally, internally reached out for guidance, support, and help from not only books and YouTube sources, but actual people as well.
More like therapists, coaches, just like what type of people?
A lot of it has been like YouTube, Dr. Wayne Dyer, Joe Dispenza, Tim Ferriss, Robin Sharma, Ralph Smart. A lot of people on YouTube that really helped me in some very very dark times and got me on a line where it was like, okay, now I tried to reach out to Ralph Smart and Robin Sharma and a couple of those guys, but I could never get like a answer back. So I was like, okay, it's time for me to find someone around the area that I can start talking to. And to be honest, I really never found too many people. I had to kind of keep it more as like I did talk to a therapist for a while. I had to keep it more as like self therapy and so much as reaching out to or on YouTube and podcasts and just finding this information that I needed to hear myself. And I remember in the beginning, I would just like I remember like when my ex-wife first left, I would listen to like Ralph Smart and Robin Sharma, and I'll just be like, I remember specifically, I'd be working up in the morning. I'd be on working out on a elliptical and be listening to stuff and just be like crying while I'm working out. And like, not because I was like so sad, because I was just like, I have a feeling that like, this is what I need to hear. I don't get it. I'm not understanding what it means. Like, what am I doing wrong? Like, why am I so bad? Why am I so wrong? Why does my ex hate me? Like a lot of self hate. And it took like, obviously it was some other power too, like, making me like keep listening to them because I was like hurting while I was listening to them actually. But I think instead of framing it as hurt, like if I could have back then just said like, I'm healing from it, like I need to hear this, understand it. I need to be, you know, exposed to it. Because before that, I didn't have that stuff in my life as much. It was more craziness, violence, gangs, drugs, parties, this and that. And now starting feeding myself with this, it was like, I remember sometimes thinking like, geez, like how much time did you waste, Rob? Like why didn't you put this stuff in your body and your mind like way before in the beginning? How things could have been different. And eventually, I got to a point where I was like, that's not the point. The point is just the journey. This is how it happened, and I'm grateful that I actually, had the chance to learn all this. And that's why I've came like in a place with my ex-wife as well. Like now we're friends. We're not. I wouldn't say like friends, but we're definitely amicable. We can speak to each other. There's no hatred there anymore. It took kind of going through all that and learning and growing for me to get to that point.
What do you see showed up in your marriage because of what happened before? Like, what were certain pattern behaviors that now won't happen because you're in a completely different place?
Yeah, I mean, so that's the thing, like with growing and healing, like, sometimes things do pop up again. It's all about how you deal with them now, right? Like, because in the past, even with my relationship now, like, I'll start to feel insecure or I'll start to feel like untrusting because of, and I hate to like pinpoint it on one instance that happened because like my whole life, like, especially as a child, it was filled with insecure situations that made me feel like I wasn't loved or able to be taken care of, or I'd just be thrown away. People would be there for a minute and then be gone out of my life. All kind of things like that. So it really did cause a lot of trust issues and insecurity. But now, like when it comes up harder, I can kind of look into it and see it more, and kind of try to slow down, breathe, like think about what's going on, really act differently, and that's what I do. Sometimes I still get caught up in thinking and overthinking, and I have to just breathe and realize things are happening as they're supposed to. I am worth love, I am worth trusting, and I do trust and I do love, and all that is all happening in accordance with the way it's supposed to. And if I do get hurt again, it's okay. Like I will be okay beyond it, and I will grow from it. And I shouldn't stop life or be scared to live life or scared to love again or scared to meet people again, just because it hurt so bad and it scared me so much. It's much easier said than done. However, it's very empowering and very healing and growing when you do that. And I mean, I never thought I'd be with anybody else except my ex-wife when I started dating her. I met her. I was in a relationship a year after that. It lasted for a year, and I thought the same thing about that person. And I started to realize the pattern, like, love is big for me. Communication, connection is really big for me. Um, but with my last relationship, when that ended, I kind of made promises to myself about how I'm going to go into the next relationship, about what I want and how I want to be, and how I want to be different. I've done very well. I can probably ask my girlfriend now, and she might be able to have some extra
I'd love
words
to
to add
speak
in.
to her.
But we talk about this stuff too. Like, and she's actually kind of very aligned on the same speaking and same, podcast, and listen to the same thing I listen to. So it's very easy to speak to. And for me, that was one thing missing in my past relationships was the lack of communication, like, of real communication, like from the heart, especially like during times of like hurt or trouble or issues. And me and her now are like much better on that.
So what specific way do you now communicate with her that people who are listening can go and copy that from you?
two things, and they have to go hand in hand and that be balanced. One is being very assertive and clear about what it is you want to talk about, and two is being patient and understanding that the other person might not want to talk about it right then, that you have to let them process things, and you process things yourself and go into it. The first part I'm very good with, being assertive and talking about it. The latter, which is the patience, is where I kind of falter sometimes. And it's a learning process, and I learn more and more that that everyone processes and sees things and wants to talk about things differently. I think the important part is, and in which I'm blessed and happy to say that I do have now, is the fact that you do actually get that communication across. Eventually, meeting each other, for our own unique communicative and loving needs, we kind of meet there in the middle, and then learn to talk about it, and then in my opinion, like, then things just flow, and they have been with life and personal stuff. And even the other day, I think me and her both are like we're feeling weird, we're feeling like stuck, we're feeling like something is off, and like just the fact that we verbalized it, we realized that we kind of like were able to both think about things separately on our own as we went through our day, and eventually not feel like that anymore. And that's the thing in relationships, like it's like two different people coming together, like to not just be like one person, like you're still kind of two unique individual people, and like you're sharing a space which is a relationship. You're going to bring your own, like for me, like I have my family issues going on, I have business issues, I have this and that, and then for her, like she has medical stuff going on and her family issues and having a baby for her sister, and there's like all this stuff that that we need to be able to like lean on a little bit, I guess, our partners with, and discuss it and stuff. But we all process it and view it and have different stories from it. So there's like a very special, magical little way in the middle that it all kind of makes sense and meets, where we find love basically. And that's kind of like, instead of like love being just a random thing or object, that's when it becomes like a verb, an action. Sharing that love, sharing those moments, sharing those times, and communicating about it, and growing from it together and individually.
I love that so much. What else do you do now in your relationship that you haven't done before?
Communication is really one of the biggest things, for the one. Two, like when there's arguments and issues that do come up, is facing them instead of like throwing them under the rug, and just saying, oh, it's okay now, things will be better. And then like every relationship is different, every person is different, unique. And I used to believe that, you're going to find just one person, and that's the person, that's the way it's going to be. I've learned that everyone's in your life for a reason, and you're in everyone else's life for a reason as well. So you kind of really have to be grateful and happy for those moments. And what's really cool is when two people really align on that, whether they slip here and there or have like worries or insecurities here and there, things do flow really nicely. And I've kind of learned to trust that more. Sometimes I stop trusting it and I get, all in my head. But when I can really take a second and slow down and breathe, like I realize that you have to trust the universe, like it is going to kind of guide you in that way, especially when you have good intentions and good heart behind it. You'll follow the right path. You'll find the right things.
What made you have that trust? Was it like from some things that you saw, or was it like, okay, I'm gonna just go and try this and see what happens?
Well, to me, and this, it might be the same as a lot of people, it might be different. To me, having the lack of trust was killing me internally. Like the insecurity, the worrying, the not want to trust anybody, because I'm a loving person and I need people. I wouldn't say I need it, but I want people in my life that are good people that I can talk to, that are my friends, that are my
You need
lovers,
it. You're
that
a
are my
human
family.
being that deserves it.
Definitely, definitely. And that's what, I want that. So I have to realize that, like, hey, if I'm going to not trust anything or anyone around me, and I'm going to be worried about this, I'm going to stress myself out, bring myself down. And also, in essence, like, at the end of the day, take away the thing that I almost want the most, and that's like, sharing that love and those connections and those times with people that I care about.
So what happened? Going back to your wife, you want to just continue that story? How that finish?
Yeah, so basically, we moved to New York, New Jersey for a while. We were living there, starting the business. I was teaching tennis, and we quickly started arguing a lot. She was born and brought up in India. I was born and brought up here, and we really didn't understand each other on a lot of things. And I can speak Punjabi and Hindi, and she can speak English. But when you're really talking about serious stuff, when you get upset and talk about it, I misinterpret stuff, and she misinterprets stuff, and that kind of became a pattern in the very beginning. I didn't really know what to do. I just had a new wife. I had to take care of her, and I was like, and she couldn't work. She's new in the country and stuff like that. So I was like, I got to go work. So I think a mistake I made back then, which it happened the way it happened, and for me it was a big step because I never worked really in the past. I was always involved in that crazy lifestyle. I was like, we got a spot. Here it is, and I just started going out looking for a job, and I quickly got one teaching tennis, and I started doing that and just kind of got really dove into that and didn't really put as much attention into the new relationship as I probably needed to. However, at that point, I felt like I couldn't. The only thing I could do is just try to work and make a living and make it work for us. So from there, we just started fighting a lot more and a lot more. A short 18 months later, we had tried to go to California together, and we drove there to live with her parents or her family there, and start life in California, start business there. During that road trip of California to or from New York to California, we started arguing a lot too. So we kind of came into California on bad terms. And within 2 weeks, she left, and we got in a big argument, and she went to the airport and went back to India. And I had nowhere to stay. I was kind of just living on the street, living on my minivan, living in hostels. And that's kind of where I changed a lot of things in my life. I went through a period of just really, really like depression, like drinking, like suicidal thoughts, like drugs, everything like really, really badly until I was like, you know what, like this is the way to do it. And so I started working to win her back. And one thing she wanted was not to be getting help by my parents and to be having our business do well and being in LA and having our own place. So I kind of worked my butt off. I just met clients, made connections. I'm a convicted felon and I have no work history, so getting a spot was really hard for me. I had to do a lot of things, jump through a lot of hurdles until I finally was able to get a small little studio downtown LA. And she eventually came back after like me begging and talking and like our families talking and this and that. And then just the first day she came back, like it was just not the right, kind of like one of those things you force it and it's not meant to be, it wouldn't work out.
It was the
So
parents wanted it more than the two of you.
yeah, I mean, I wanted it really badly, and I think at that point, the reason for me wanting it was, I mean, I did love her very much, and I still have like a special place in my heart, love for her. I don't have any hatred towards her, but it was just kind of pushing it, so hard. Like the parents obviously want Indian kids to be together; they don't want it to separate. And I don't think she really wanted that anymore. She wanted something different as well. So when she came back, it was just arguing, 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 and for the first 3 or 4 months, I kind of like took it because she was talking like really like rudely to me and it's really rough and like I was like, oh, I want her back. Let me just like do right. And then I started arguing again also. So it was maybe a year, maybe a year at the most, until like the second kind of large fight happened where we split up totally and we haven't been together since then. And now since COVID has happened, our divorce paperwork still hasn't went through yet. But we've talked about it. We know we're going to do it and everything. We don't have kids or property together. We're just kind of waiting on all that to happen. And she's been in India for a year now and hasn't been able to come back due to COVID also. But yeah, I mean, in the beginning, that after that second fight, we were at each other's throats for a good couple of months, and it was craziness and back and forth, and family was involved and calling back and forth and things like that. But we both, time heals a lot of things, and we talked about a lot, slowly and thought about it, and then eventually just didn't talk at all and came to a place where like we able to talk to each other in an understanding sense. One Christmas or somewhere like I think last year, right after I got another relationship, actually, she randomly came to my house a little bit tipsy at 2 o'clock in the morning, and we talked for a couple hours, and like she was crying, and I was crying, we were apologizing about our mistakes, and then I dropped her off at the airport for her flight to go back to her family, and since then we've kind of came to a place of like not being hurtful to each other, anymore, and understanding each other. But it was quite a journey getting through all that because and now like, she got her green card and her visa for America, and I was feeling like, oh, she used me for it, and that wasn't the case. Like we're like in the beginning, it was real. When she came back, she had like a couple of different intentions, but like it wasn't ever the intention just to use me for access to America. Like that just happened during the process because that was the plans in the beginning.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. That's a real journey. Do you think that the fact that you now have a good relationship affects your relationship now?
I think it does. My ex-wife actually knows about the relationship I'm in now. Like and the one I was in before this. And my girlfriend now actually knows most of the details, most all the details of everything as well. I think for me, I really hope that the whole world doesn't have to go through this because like then everyone has to go through the troubling part. But for me, I really needed to grow up during all that, and and learn. I was in a lot of tough relationships as a younger kid. The first girl I was ever with in a relationship, she kind of talked to my best friend in the past and got with him and broke up for like materialistic reasons. And then, after that, I was in various relationships where like cheating and fighting and just craziness was always involved. So it kind of became a pattern as well. And I really had to stop back and look and see where my, mistakes were, but I also had to be gentle enough and understanding enough to understand that, other people were involved and, there's other things at play as well. And I don't have to be mad or upset at those things. I just have to look at my own, and see what I caused and see what I attracted in my life as well. With the craziness and the lifestyle and the mindset I was living in at that point.
So taking responsibility for your life.
Yeah, once again, it's one of those easier said and done things. It's like I spent a good part of this year pulling my hair out and like crying and sitting alone during quarantine, facing a lot of these issues, soberly, with no drugs, no alcohol here and there. Like when quarantine, it was kind of tough not to like just randomly drink every once in a while. But these problems and issues like really, I used to smoke a lot of weed every single day and take other drugs and stuff. And during quarantine, I was just totally clean from that stuff and really just facing things head on. And it was tough. It was a lot of mental angst. I was hearing things, having dreams, like literally pulling my hair out, crying, walking around, and writing and reading at the same time and meditating and praying at the same time as well. But that was a very important step for me. It's kind of helped me get to the exact place where I am today, which I still call myself like a baby in this healing and growing and journey process. My girlfriend actually studies and reads and understands a lot of this, more than I do. And even today, she told me, "You sound like you're mad. You're talking about philosophy." And I'm like, "No, I get like overly like hyper almost and excited about and passionate about things. So it kind of comes out as like maybe like a rude tone, but like I am learning a lot still, and I learn a lot from her on a daily basis." She has a very unique way of thinking and taking in all the information that I've been taking in myself the last year. So a lot of it does like kind of hit me, and I kind of come like, "Hey, like what are you talking about? Like this is the way it is, And she kind of like, "Well, why are you talking like that?" Like, and then when she says like that, it's like, wait a minute, like, oh, maybe my voice was different, and if my voice was different, that means I was feeling something different. And if I was feeling something different, where is that coming from? Let me think about that a little bit, take a couple of breaths, and then talk again.
Yeah, getting to the
And
core and really understanding instead of just becoming defensive and like, hey, like, that wasn't my point, but really understanding like that. Came out of quarantine in a much better place than most people.
yeah, and I feel bad because a lot of people went the other way, and for me, like I didn't know what I was gonna do. I already knew I was in trouble when it happened. I was like, oh gosh, full cut off from everybody. Like, what am I gonna do? Hopefully, I'll be okay. But it turned out
Yeah, which
okay.
brings me to my next question. What's your love language?
My love language is acts of service, I think, and then quality time,
I knew
and
quality
then
time had to be one of your top two, just from like what you said about people.
yeah, I mean, I think we can all have like a little bit of all of them. But I guess those are
Sure.
my
One, I
top
think we
ones.
all have like our own mix of like what we like and everything, but there's like, they say a healthy person could give and receive in all five love languages, but there's just like
Yeah,
which one you prefer, which one you like more. Yeah.
definitely.
Awesome. Okay. So my very last question for you is how would you describe an extraordinary relationship without using these three words? Love, intimacy, and connection.
I would describe it, I guess, of the perfect relationship without love, intimacy, or connection. I would say two unique souls aligned on similar paths, sharing experiences together across the world, traveling.
Has to be
Um,
traveling,
it does kind of that has to be in there a little bit. That's a
right?
huge one for me, right?
Without traveling, you're just missing out.
Right, right. But yeah, just creating and experiencing new things and older things together, with the right amount of space and the right amount of unity. I guess I'm going around your words a little bit at the same time. Yeah, all that together.
I love that. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Rocky. This was amazing. Did you enjoy that episode? Could you do me a personal favor and subscribe and leave a review? It would mean a lot to me. Thank you so much and have an awesome day.